Hello, my name is Jared Morantz, and welcome to Designing the Alien Rock Grubber tutorial. I've designed this lecture to mimic my experiences in designing for films, games, and television. Oftentimes, when working on these projects, it's very rare that I'll get a full script. Usually, I get a very brief description, and I have to go from there. So, to mimic that, I've created my own brief description, and it is: the alien rock grubber scavenges for eggs along the jagged terrain. Now, this might not seem like a lot of information, but there's actually a lot here to work with. For example, the alien rock grubber. So, right off the bat, it's an alien. It's something that we haven't quite seen before. It's possible we're on an alien planet. Let's look at this word, scavenges. Now that's a very interesting word, and that can tell us a lot about the character of this creature. Now the writer chose this word specifically, not forages. When I think of the word scavenge, I think of something perhaps a bit more insidious. Images of vultures come to mind. And this creature is scavenging for eggs. In the animal kingdom, that's really not bad, that's par for the course. But through human perception, a creature that is scavenging for eggs can be a bit lowbrow. We're not going to admire this creature. We're probably not even going to like this creature. Now, it's also looking for these eggs along a jagged terrain. So we know that in order for this creature to navigate such a treacherous terrain, chances are it's very nimble and it's able to balance on this very rocky land. So we actually have quite a bit of information here, which will bring us to the next part of the design phase. Before I start any project, before I start putting pen to paper, the very first thing I do is I go online and I gather photo reference and I create these collages. These collages help to ground my designs in reality. I went online and I found all of these great images of things that I felt embodied what I want that rock grubber to be. You don't actually have to go that far to find bizarre alien life. There's quite a few weird things that exist in our world. These are photos of dust mites that I found online. Look at all of this amazing detail that you can see in these photos. These creatures have mandibles, they have these amazing quills that come out of their body. They're already really interesting creature designs. And I've got a lot of different photos to inspire me to come up with different options for my rock grubber. As a good rule of thumb, in the first pass, in the design phase, you're going to want to give your client 3 drastically different options for your character. The way the design phase works is you, as the concept artist, supply options to the client, and once the client sees those options, they really just pick what they like, and then you go back and you do another pass. It's not really rocket science, but if you have 3 drastically different concepts in your initial phase, you give the client just enough to work with. Now, you might find that the client focuses on one of the designs, or he might mix and match elements from your concepts, and you go and you do the next pass. So here, when we're looking at our reference collage, what I've essentially created is a lot of different options for what the rock grubber could be. I could stay within the theme of the dust mite, or I could zoom in and give the director, the client, a praying mantis-like option. And this is a very different type of character than the dust mite. The praying mantis has a certain type of dignity, a certain type of sophistication to him, and so he has a very different emotional read than our friend the dust mite over here. As we go down the collage, you can see that I've added more friendly creatures, like the frog here, maybe the director doesn't want an option that's that dark and twisted. And so I've added frogs to the collage as well. Now I can't help but hone in on that word scavenger. And so I'd love to do a pass where it's really just focused on bringing elements of the vulture into the design. In this section of the collage over here, you can see human reference. Now, it's not just here for anatomy. I might want to incorporate more character into my creature design. And in order to do that, I'm going to want to incorporate human features into the face. If I really want a creature that is mischievous, I'm going to want it to be able to emote. When you look at the dust mite, this is a creature that is functioning entirely on instinct, not on emotion. When we look at that face, we can't really see emotion. And so by incorporating human elements into the face, we can get much more character out of our creature design. Now, when it comes to creating any original creature design, it's not enough to just base the concept off of one creature. And so what I'll usually do is I will focus on one as the base and then incorporate elements from another creature into the design to come up with something more original. Now, throughout film, we've seen a lot of designs out there that are really just the 50-50 formula. You've seen the Wolfman, part man, part wolf. You've seen the Gillman, part man, part fish. To create a completely original design, I recommend working in thirds. And so if we were to take elements of the dust mite and incorporate elements from the frog, we'd have something pretty interesting. If we were then to take elements from this beetle and add some bizarre horns, we would have something that people have not seen before. That's how original design can be accomplished. Let's look at this dust mite a little bit more closely. So, I can see quite a few patterns in this creature that show up in other animals, even larger animals. Let's look at a rhino. Between these two images, we can actually see, again, a very similar shape language. The rhino's body really not very different from the dust mite. Now, there are things that are very different about these two creatures. Even though these creatures share a very similar shape language, they have a very different relationship with gravity. And this is evident in the proportions of these creatures. If we look at the dust mite, we can see that its massive body is supported by these very small little limbs. If you were to scale up a creature, there's no way it would be able to support its own weight with these tiny little fingers. When we look at the rhino, you can see that the legs become more substantial. They're thicker. They can support the weight of this massive body. So keep that in mind when working on your creature design. How large is your creature? What is its relationship to gravity? So we can actually start to incorporate quite a few of these elements into our rhino character and create a more seamless design. If we were to borrow a few pieces, like the mandibles, perhaps the hairs, and maybe we could even add a few more legs. Now, because the creature, as I've mentioned before, is significantly longer, we still want to give him a wider base to plant his weight on. Maybe he's got a leg coming out of here. A third leg back here off of the page. Oops. by looking at the reference, we can combine elements from creatures that have a similar shape language and come up with something pretty new and exciting. We might also want to incorporate a third element into the design just to make it a bit more exciting. Now, I do remember seeing something back here that I thought would be pretty cool on a rhino. Like, what is a rhino without a horn? Where is that? There it is. So, we could take these elements here in this beetle and incorporate it into our rhino design. And that's pretty interesting. So we could have these two horns coming out here and coming forward here. Now there are many opportunities to incorporate these shapes into the rhino. Here we have all of these wonderful ridges in the beetle plates. Well, our rhino has plates as well, so we could start to bring these points along the edge of the rhino plates to get that combination. So this is just a formula I use in exercise. A lot of other artists have different techniques, but when it comes to grounding things in reality, what I really want you to take from this is the importance of reference. So take the time to create a solid collage of images that really inspire the creature you want to design. Aside from the importance of having good photo reference, I cannot stress having good anatomical reference enough. These are my top 3 favorite books: An Atlas of Animal Anatomy for Artists, Animal Anatomy for Artists by Elliot Goldfinger, and Human Anatomy for Artists, also Elliot Goldfinger. As creature designers, we have to think of our creatures from the inside out, and these books are incredible reference. Now, the reason why I stress these books and not others is because these books accurately depict anatomy. There are a lot of anatomy books out there, but I feel that this is as accurate as it gets for artists. Let's really look at this anatomy. This is from Human Anatomy for Artists, and this is great. This is really all you need to know with regards to surface anatomy for humans. Granted, the more you know, the better. But this is my favorite human anatomical cheat sheet. I keep this around me all the time. It's just phenomenal reference. Now, after studying human anatomy, you can start to identify patterns that show up amongst all mammals. Here's an image from, I believe it's this book, An Atlas of Animal Anatomy. Now look how well drawn this is. This is really incredible. It's a very affordable book. You can see the patterns in these two images. You have the latissimus muscle here, you've got the serratus muscle, latissimus here, serratus muscle, pectoral muscles, you've got the tricep here, you've got the tricep there. Once you take the time to really understand human anatomy, everything else starts to fall into place. Because creature design is about combining familiar elements, understanding animals at an anatomical level will just make you a better creature designer. It's undeniable. So, own these books. I cannot stress it enough. As a creature designer, and even as a character designer, anything that you do figuratively, it is your job to think like an X-ray machine. When you're designing a creature, you need to understand what that new creature's skeleton is like, how muscles attach to that skeleton, and how skin fits over those muscles. So these are incredible resources, and I hope you all add these books to your library.